Katie McLean is a life coach and the author of books for families. One is How to Tame Your Thought Monster, and there's also a coloring book and an app for that. There's an app for that. She lives in LA with her husband, teen son, and 2 tiny doggies. Welcome, Katie.
So, picture this. There's an 8-member family, and they're in a very small space. The littlest person, the littlest family member is crying. And the biggest family member is yelling at the little guy. This is my family, actually. This picture I had you imagine is my family. So, this is my brother Patrick, and he was upset and crying. This is a door right here, and we were about to go somewhere. And Patrick was upset and crying. That's me. Patrick was 2.5. That's me at about 5. That's my dad shouting at my brother to stop crying. And there's my mom and my older siblings who are kind of encouraging Patrick to stop crying as well. I was frozen and confused and getting more and more upset. There was all of this noise and upset, and all we were trying to do was go someplace. When one family member hurts, it hurts the whole family. So why was Patrick crying? I don't really think it's that important. Maybe there was some need he hadn't, didn't have met. He was tired, or he was hungry, or something like that. Maybe there was some other trigger. He was scared of something, or he, pinched his finger in the door, or something like that. I don't really remember. Maybe it was even my dad had been yelling before he started crying. That's a very strong possibility, knowing my family. Well, I was 5, and I was hurting too. I wanted more than anything for my family to allow my brother to cry. I didn't understand what was the problem with a little baby who was crying. And I was outraged. I became outraged over this. And there were times I fought back and said, stop yelling at him, and did things like that. But, at 5 years old, I didn't know what to do. And looking back, I actually know the rest of my family was hurting as well. My dad, who was up here yelling, he was upset. He was hurting. There was some kind of pain that he had going on inside of him. And my mom, she was hurting. The rest of my siblings were hurting. We were all hurting, the whole family, in that experience. So now I'm an adult, and my mission in life is to help families move through life's experiences. The little annoying ones, the ones that, don't seem that bad. Just like, oh, this irritated me, or that frustrated me, or whatever. Those things add up. And I want to help families all the way through those really painful experiences, be able to move through them with simple, even playful tools. And, we can actually do that. I've learned a lot of tools along the way. I've created my own tools, which you can find in my books. But like one of them, for example, is, I have this robot, Charlie, and he helps us see the everyday circumstances in our life with new eyes, so that we can look for the facts and just kind of remove the drama from some of those little irritating things and even some of the big things by shifting how we see things. Another tool that I think is really powerful is I have parents and their kids meet their thought monsters. Thought monster is kind of a silly little thing that I created, but it's that inner voice that we all have. And kids have that voice by the time they're 4 years old. When I learned that, I was really stunned, but I wasn't surprised because that 5-year-old me was like, shut up! And taming your thought monster actually helps you to, first of all, recognize and allow those negative thoughts that are there and help you to tame them so you can tell a better story about what's going on in your life or in that particular circumstance that you might be dealing with. I've learned a lot of tools. I love sharing these tools, but the thing I really needed at 5 years old was for everyone to just be okay with the hurt that my brother felt and with the hurt they all felt. I didn't realize that part until later. I wanted them to be okay with their own hurt as well. And so there are so many ways we can do this, even if every need had been met of my brothers. Even if that baby was just one of those babies who I'm sure you've all experienced, or many of you have in your own families, where you think they have everything they need and they're still crying. It's like, what is going on? But even if everything what had been met and he was crying or upset in some way, what he needed was compassion. My brother needed compassion from my father and the rest of us. But my dad couldn't give him compassion because he didn't have his own. He wasn't able to have compassion for himself. He wasn't taught tools. And of course I don't know his whole life history, but I know enough about my dad and my mom to know that nobody taught them how to be compassionate with themselves when they were feeling any kind of pain. It could be embarrassment. It could be, you hurt my feelings kind of. Somebody actually says words to you that are hurtful. It could be you made a mistake and you're like, I wish I hadn't done that. There's such a huge array of minor, difficult emotions to very, very deep. As I said along the way, I've got a lot of tools that I've discovered, especially to work with our emotions. I'd love to actually share one of them with you right now. So, first of all, I'd like you to close your eyes and take a deep breath. And just let yourself relax into your chair. And recall a memory of an experience or anything that was an emotion you had that was difficult. It can be mild, it can be embarrassment or disappointment, it can be something deeper, it can be something recent, or it can be something from your own childhood, or any time in between. Now I don't want you to focus on the circumstances of that experience, just the emotion. And for the first part of this, I want you to just acknowledge the emotion and say to yourself the name of that feeling. And in your mind, you can also add, ouch. This hurts. I'm suffering. Whichever one of those feels right for the emotion you're remembering. Now the next step is to connect. Other people have felt this way. Sometime, maybe at the same time as you felt it, but sometimes, someplace on this earth, you are not alone in that feeling. Other people have had that emotion before. So you can say to yourself in this step, I am not alone. I'm connected to others through this pain. Now for this third step, before you do it, I want you to just place your hands over your heart. Another thing you can do is you can put your hands on your cheeks, or you can hug yourself. And studies have shown that this type of care given to yourself, especially when you have the intention of healing, releases oxytocin, which is the love hormone. So this third step is to soothe. So you can imagine that you are a loving friend or a loving parent or somebody who you know cares about you. And what I want you to say is to yourself is whatever you needed to hear in that moment. It might have been something like, it's okay. It might have been something like, oh, I know, I felt that way too. Oh, I'm so sorry you feel that way. Whatever words are soothing or comforting to you, Just whisper those to yourself in your mind. Now go ahead and take another deep breath and open your eyes when you're ready. How many of you experienced a lessening of that emotion that you presenced by doing that exercise? So the key is that you acknowledged and recognized your emotion. And then you gave yourself what you needed. We don't need anybody else to do it. In families, it would be ideal if everyone at every moment could say, oh, I'm so sorry you're hurting. Let me give you a hug. Is that okay? And then helped us work through the story and change it to a more positive experience. Or found the learning in the story. It would be amazing if we could do that every minute, but we can't. And what I have found is that in many, many of the families I work with, the parents are hurting. And because they're hurting, for some reason, maybe it's from their own childhood, like my experience, or maybe it's just they had a bad day at work. And if they don't know how to soothe themselves, they can often get it on their kids. They just, they're like my dad, shouting because they're so frustrated. And we've all been there. And we need to forgive ourselves for that, but if we can learn to give ourselves compassion and offer that kind and loving, soothing and care to ourselves, I believe it'll change the world personally. And that modeling is then there for our children. And you can actually teach these steps. Like all of the tools I share, you can teach each of these individual steps to your children, and they're very simple. And many of them are fun. I mean, I've got crazy thought monsters and wacky robots and action superheroes, female action superheroes to help you and your kids. What if the next time you were feeling any kind of discomfort emotionally, you just stopped, you took a minute and slowed down. Maybe you're sitting in your car before you get out of it to go into your house after work, or on the way home on the train or whatever. If you just would slow down and give yourself even one of these steps, acknowledge that you're feeling pain instead of pushing it away. Or recognize that you are not the only person who's ever felt this way. Or hold your hands over your heart. If you're on the train someplace where you don't want people to see, you can just hold your hand. It still works. Still sends oxytocin through your system. And just offer yourself some kindness. Today. Thank you.